Start getting the streamer geared in here so everybody can hear it and see it across America. How you doing this morning, Butch?
I'm doing great. You know, I miss being in the Blue Room with you, but anytime that I'm out and about around the country, Jim, it's always the opportunity to remind ourselves and our audience again what an incredible nation we live in, a diverse nation, a melting pot. You know, up here in New York, about 30 minutes away from the city, and a few years back, I had the opportunity during the middle of some tremendous persecution the church was going through. I met a guy named Henry Spitzer, and he took the time, Jim, to fly from New York as a sign of solidarity with our church and the persecution it was going through, and it made a tremendous, tremendous impact on me. He's now become a dear friend, and he's here today with a business partner, and so welcome, Henry.
Hi, good morning, and it's a special day for me to spend time with a good friend that I call my older brother, Butch. It's a special day for me that I came to visit in New York, and I'm sitting here with my business partner, Shimi Singer, who is one of the greatest minds I know.
Absolutely. Shimi, welcome.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It is my honor to be here and to share some time with you.
Well, Jim, here's what I thought we would do is we'll just have a four-way conversation. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. Be looking forward to that.
Great. Well, let me start out by asking specifically about your community. Your community. Describe for people, because our audience is very interested in the diversity of our nation, and you're part of a community, so tell us about it.
So I'll give you a little bit of a background first. So most of our community are descendants of European Jews who came here after World War II and after the persecution of the Holocaust. Personally, two of my grandmothers, both were in Auschwitz. Both of them are still alive today. That's a separate story for in itself. But, you know, we came here, our grandparents came here after the war. They came here without any money. They came here broke, physically, mentally, emotionally, in every possible way. They settled. They came to Ellis Island, where most of the ships from Europe came, and they started settling around the New York City area. However, with times when New York City became more expensive, less desirable to bring up kids, some of the people started moving, you know, a little bit outside of the city. And in about 1955 to 1960, some of the Orthodox Jews or Hasidic Jews, depending on who you ask how we are called, moved to an area called Rockland County. Rockland County itself has a long history. There was George Washington stayed here a couple of nights during the war. There's a cemetery from the Independence War, as well as it has a long history dating back almost to 3,000 years ago from Indians called the Munsais. And this area that we live in is called Muncie, based on those Indian tribes that live here in caves. Some of the caves are still here today. Some people can come here to visit that. Rockland County itself was mostly farmland and, you know, a little bit less populated than New York City. So a lot of people that didn't want to be involved with the hustle and the bustle and just wanted to have some quiet moved here a little bit north of New York City. As the time progressed, it became more and more desirable for Orthodox Jews to live here based on the changing immodesty of the outside world. As, you know, the world went down, more and more people, you know, moved outside the city. Currently, Rockland County is percentage-wise the most percentage of Jews anywhere in the United States, of any county in the United States. I think at the last numbers, it was about 35% of the county were Jewish. The county is about 334,000 people after the last census, and it's one of the fastest growing counties in the nation, and that's due also because of the Orthodox Jews and the belief that the Orthodox Jews have. We had a growth, I think, of 14% from 2010 to 2020, which is astronomical when you think about the whole Western world, which are struggling to maintain population, let alone do growth on it. We have a very nice community here. We've been top 2 and top 3 safest town in the United States for numerous years, according to the FBI. We have a very good economy, and we live relatively in peace, and we really enjoy our town, our neighborhood, our fellow citizens. So that's pretty much about the area that we live in.
Jim, the thing that I love about this great nation that we have is it's just so tremendous, and you can see this illustrated in what Shumi was saying, is there's a very strong civic commitment, cities that really reflect strong civic pride and a commitment to each other, and we all need each other, and one example of that is that these gentlemen, Shumi in particular, is very involved in emergency services, right? So talk a little bit about that.
So I became involved in the emergency services as a volunteer half a decade ago when a friend of mine introduced me to it. I was like, I'm not sure it was for me, but he convinced me, and, I never looked back. I started out as a volunteer in a local ambulance company. So what we do is we are affiliated with the 911 system here. And when a person calls 911 and they ask for an ambulance, me and my fellow volunteers, it's all volunteers, respond to the emergencies. And we have currently 75 in our agency. We have 75 volunteers, and we cover about 2,500, 3,000 emergency calls a year, all year round, as well as I am also on the board of the fire department, which is actually a government-held position, believe it or not. Not too many people ran for it because it is a position that you do not get paid. It's a government. It's a very interesting, unique position that you're a government official without receiving any benefits or pay for the job. So not a lot of people. It doesn't draw a lot of attention, the elections or anything. But I've been on the board for 4 years. And what I do on the board is help facilitate the needs of the fire department as well as the budgeting, needs of the fire department, and looking forward to making it a better department. When we came in back 4 years ago, there was a lot of issues with the department, and our department was more on the decline. However, since we've turned around and we've been mentioned numerous times by international and national magazines covering fire departments, and we've had numerous fire departments around the country come to us and to see how we do things, because things got so much better. We increased our also the fire department is also 100% volunteer. We don't have any people who receive any money for doing that. We cover the fire department covers about 900 calls a year, and it's, like I said, 24/7, strictly volunteers. And currently, I am the captain of the EMS agency, and I'm still on the board of the fire department.
Jim, you can just tell what a fascinating set of dinners that I'm able to have with these two gentlemen when I'm here, because their stories are rich. The tapestry is so full. And, what's been so interesting is to get to know Henry. And then I want you to ask Jim some questions here in a minute. Henry is just a phenomenal entrepreneur. He's a businessman. And Henry, tell us a little bit about your business. What do you do?
I'm a salesman for a company. We are a wholesale company for gift items, and people can buy our stuff on Macy's and Wayfair and such big stores like that. And so I do that for the past 12 years. And I hold some real estate in New York. So I'm a landlord with a nice landlord. And
right.
To my tenants.
You're a good landlord.
I am. The first thing that I tell my tenants when I take in new tenants is you can pay whenever you want in the month. I don't care if it's the 1st, if it's the 15th, if it's the end of the month, I don't care. I have enough money to pay my mortgages. Whenever it's more convenient for you, as long as you pay, you have the wiggle room to pay when you want, and people enjoy being my tenants.
Great. That's so good. Jim, has this thus far prompted any questions on your part?
I think it's fascinating what he just said about being able to be so generous and lenient with his folks that rent from him. But there's no restriction that pay anyone when they can. But I was also curious. You mentioned the population of the community in which they live. Now, the population growth, is that from people moving in from other parts of New York City, or are they coming in from other states to populate your community?
If I can just jump back a second, because I want to point out to the listeners, when COVID hit, there was a lot of renters who did not pay rent at that time. I'm proud to say that all my tenants paid They always paid. Why? When you're nice to people, it comes back in return to reward you.
That's great.
All my tenants during that time, and I feel it was because I was always nice to them and understanding, and whenever they needed extra time, I was nice with them. It came back to they treat me well, and I think it's something that people should think about, and it's not like always being strict with people, rather work with them, be nice to them, and it will come back to reward you.
Jim, that sounds a lot like you.
That's a great business practice, isn't it?
It is, and it's seeing relationships, not just transactions, and that will always fortify loyalty on the part of customers and others. Now, Jim, one of the things that has grown out of some of our conversations, and we're not at liberty to go into deep things on some of this, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the 911 system in America, because there's some fundamental flaws in it, and it certainly touches places like Rutherford County as well. Shimi, I wonder if you could give kind of an overview of what's broken in the system.
I would say, I always tell people there's three things that never moved out of 1980. And the first one is going to be the planes. We fly the same way as we flew in 1980, the same speed, the same comfortability, maybe some smaller seats. Second thing is the train system in the United States. We haven't really adapted to fast trains or fast rails like we see in other countries in Asia. And the third thing is the 911 system. We operate the same way as we did in 1980 with little to no changes. And, as the world moves on, it became increasingly hard, for 911 to come along with it. So a lot of the issues that we have is that 911 predominantly is compromised of a lot of different components and that make the 911 system the system. However, the components have a lot of flaws in it, which leaves a lot of people with big issues. So, for example, one of the issues that we currently have with the 911 system is we have a shortage in dispatchers. So, according to the 911 Association, 5% of people that call 911 don't get answered, meaning to say you call 911, you expect someone to answer, however, nobody answers. And that's the national average. There's certain cities which are worse, and there's certain cities which are better. According to the association, the goal of the 911 system is to answer all calls between 15 to 20 seconds after somebody calls 911. However, the association found that only about 70% of calls get answered between 15 and 20 seconds. And, 25%, 20% of the calls get answered within 50 seconds, 50, and then 5% of the calls don't get answered. It doesn't mean somebody's not going to call you back, but when you have an emergency, every second sounds like a couple of minutes. And when you're calling and it's ringing and nobody picks up, it can be very frustrating, especially if you have a true emergency. So that's the biggest issue that we have, as well as something called routing, which is basically the way it's compromised. We have different counties, different towns, and this is relevant a lot more in rural areas than in cities, where the cell phone towers, when you call 911, the tower picks it up where you're closest to. They will connect you with that 911 center. However, a lot of the times, they will have to transfer you up to 3 times, since they're not, the appropriate center to address your emergency needs. For example, some places will have, the county answer and then transfer you to the police department, but the police department doesn't have ambulance services or fire department services, so they'll have to transfer you again. So again, all these issues make a lot of delays because you have to get to the right center, and then they have to take your information, and then they have to again connect you to someone else, or even if they're not connecting you to someone else, they have to call someone else and notify them about the emergency. And the more people it goes through, the more mistakes happen.
And people die.
Yes, unfortunately, people die every day from the flaws of the systems, and there's tremendous lawsuits in a lot of parts of the country because of the flaw of the system, as well as the inability to communicate well and to operate well together with different organizations, different entities, which, again, everybody does their own thing, and they all do good and with good hearts, but sometimes, it has to be a little bit more organized and a little bit more communication between all the entities.
Jim, does that prompt any questions on your part?
I'm just fascinated with what he's saying, because I think we, as the average American citizen, do not realize that that's taken place and how important it is to proceed with some progress and make it a little better. I'm just fascinated what the studies that you're doing and how it might become a fruition in weeks and months to come.
You know, Jim, the thing that also strikes me is that America has a rich history of entrepreneurship and innovation in tackling problems. I mean, if there's anything that can be said about America, it's that we identify problems, and then there are people that God has blessed in ways that they can, in an entrepreneurial way, come up with solutions. So in the days ahead, no doubt there'll be some opportunities there. Let me ask another question here of both of you, Shimi and Henry. We've been reading a lot and seeing a lot in national news about hate, and hate has become easier to tolerate on the part of so many people, and it should never be tolerable. What are you finding in terms of anti-Semitism? What are you seeing these days?
So I will tell you a story that happened to me last week personally, and this is not something that is odd or something that only happened to me. So we received a 911 call regarding a 87-year-old female that fell here in Rockland County. I answered the radio and said I will respond. I drive to the scene. I was there less than 3 minutes after the person, called. I go park my car at the next driveway over, not to block, where the ambulance should come, and I proceed to take my bag, my emergency equipment, to go in, and the gentleman is a gentleman who's very agitated in the front, and I asked him, "Did you call 911?" And he says, "Yes, but I specifically told him not to send me any Jews."
Wow.
And, I was like, okay. I immediately backed up because, I don't want to put my life or anybody else's life in danger. I immediately called back the police department and let them know that, that this, what this gentleman said. Police department said, okay, we'll send the police officer. A couple minutes later, police officer arrives, and the police officer tells me he is a racist, but unfortunately, it's not illegal to be a racist. And, so that's something that happened to me last week while I was volunteering for free of my time to help someone who lives a couple minutes from me in my community. And the only reason he did not want to receive help for his elderly mother was because it was going to be from a Jew. So that says a lot about the state of events in currently. And I think a lot of it is about the rhetoric that's going on. And I think, it's become a lot more relevant in a way because of the population growth. So when you're a very small community, a lot less people hear from you. But as you grow, certain people make certain assumptions, and that has a ripple effect, and then it affects certain people who are not as intelligent, which they choose to believe what they choose to believe, that to a point to delay care for your elderly mother just because of your hatred.
The way I'm jumping in, Henry. The way I see it, me personally, I've never experienced anything bad to me. But in the general picture, the way I can explain it is, as the fabric of America and the world, when people are more on their phones and more on substances, people feel less fulfilled. And we know the phrase "misery likes company." When people feel less fulfilled, they start feeling jealous at other people, and hate comes out, and that's probably what triggers more, not just anti-Semitism, whatever it is. These type of feelings come out. But me personally, thanks God, I've never experienced anything.
It's so interesting, Jim, because one of the strong connections between Henry and Shimi and their community and our community at Word of Faith Fellowship is, in Holy Scripture, there's reference made to a fellowship of suffering. And I will never forget, it was one of the most powerful moments of my life when Henry made a decision in the middle of A&E, getting ready to do The Devil Next Door, that series that, God protected us. But in the midst of that, to take his time and his energy, his effort, his money to come and stand in solidarity, to me, reflected some of the best of what America's all about.
Absolutely right. I think that you hit it right on the nail, the head of the nail, because that's absolutely what America should be built around, is that kind of support from all walks of life.
Well, and Jim, I've watched the way that you've navigated things in my 5.5 years here, and you're a bridge builder. You believe in bridges, not walls. And to me, that is a profound thing, especially in a county like ours, because we have people that are ignorant and people that still are stuck in old days and old thoughts. And, it's hard to hate people when you have what my Israeli friends call a four eyes meeting. When you make any group of people abstract and you demonize them, at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're creating a caricature. You're not dealing with the truth. And I know My Great America has always wanted to reflect truth and building bridges. Henry, you were going to say something.
I was just going to share the message that I came to deliver at that time. Basically, what I told them was, it was the time when a documentary was going to come out to smear you guys. And I felt that some of you might start thinking, hey, maybe these guys are right and there's something wrong with you. So I came to share the message that, as Shimmy started, we're descendants of Holocaust survivors. My grandparents were always told back then, when they were dealing with the Nazis and all of that, that you guys are bad and that you're the problem. And instead of backing down and starting thinking, hey, maybe these people are right and there's something wrong with us and we're the problem of the world and all these stuff, they stood up and believed, no, that's not true, and we're good people and we're going to continue and build life again. And that was the message that I came to bring to you guys, that I, as an outsider, and I know your community through business relationships that I have over there, I know you guys are nice people and don't believe what some haters are trying to tell you. And rather, I want to come and say that stand up, know that you're good people, and continue to move on without starting thinking in your head that these people are right.
And Jim, that's really what friendship is all about, and someone once said, loyalty is never so regarded as in those moments when betrayal rears its ugly head. You know who your friends are in a fight.
Yes. The friends won't let you down. They'll be there for you through thick and thin. And when the fire's burning the hottest, they'll be right there with you. And I think it's been an honor to have your friends on our program today. And I hope someday I would have a chance to meet them face to face and shake their hand because of what they're doing up there and what they've done for America and our great America by being here.
Well, this is a great stop on the My Great America bus tour that you and I are going to talk about.
Right.
All right, my brother.
I'll see you soon. Have a safe trip back to Carolinas, and I'll tell your friends that I said thanks so much for being with our program today.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for joining us for My Great America with Jim and Butch. Join us each Tuesday and Thursday morning at 9:05 for this enlightening program on 100.9 FM and 590 AM. It's My Great America with Jim and Butch.